The new update for Cyberpunk 2077 just dropped. We have some new game plus info to talk about and some cool stuff happening for Cyberpunk 2077. If you saw my last video on the Phantom Liberty update and update 1.7, we also talked a little bit about this new update that was coming out today and you can download now. It's like a 20 gigabyte update. And in that last video, we also went over the casino leak with this mysterious character, Alt Cunningham. I still have no idea who this is, so let me know down in the comments. But anyways, the update that released today brought us some new features such as the all-new path tracing, which is basically a juiced up version of ray tracing. Sort of like ray tracing, but way more in depth to where the light reflections are a lot more realistic. Which also gives huge benefits to just about everything, such as the shadows and wonky looking visuals you get some of the time. It makes the game look incredibly realistic, and from a technology standpoint, it's a game changer. I'm not going to go super in depth with it, but I'll leave a link to Digital Foundry's video on the path tracing update because their video is hard to beat and it goes super in depth with exactly what's going on here. The new path tracing feature will show up in your settings on PC, but if you don't own a 3090 or a 40 series GPU, your game is probably going to either crash or it'll show up enabled, but your graphics won't look very good at all. But if you don't own a 3090 or a 40 series GPU like a 4080, 4090, they did add some extra features which are available with any RTX graphics card, which use machine learning to give you better visuals. These are DLAA and Intel XeSS. These two features cannot be used simultaneously though. DLAA uses AI to improve the visual quality, makes the game look better. I also tested the DLAA on a 3080 and it wasn't too great while being paired with ray tracing, but I was also recording on that same PC and on a 4K monitor, so that's obviously going to hinder performance quite a bit. However, the new Intel Xe Supersampling 1.1 uses machine learning to give you better performance while still maintaining high image quality, and while using this ray tracing on a 3080, my game still looked pretty dang good and I definitely noticed some improved performance as I had 0 frame drops, and like I said, I was also recording at the same time. So from my experience with the Intel Supersampling, it's pretty awesome. Now obviously this update is pretty limited, not only to PC but the real high-end PCs with a 40 series GPU. Some of the features still being available for other RTX cards, but still a small portion of players. So as great as the improvements are, I mean they are really good, most people are not going to experience them. I keep seeing a ton of comments from you guys about New Game Plus, wondering when it's coming, waiting for the New Game Plus update, so I figured we'd go over what the developers have said about New Game Plus and when it will arrive. The last that we heard about New Game Plus was from the level design lead, who went on a bit of a rant about New Game Plus on Twitter. This happened when the community manager for Cyberpunk was asked what was going on with the New Game Plus update, and added that it's probably the single most sought after feature that players want, second to being able to transmog, which both of these are probably true. I think being able to transmog, New Game Plus, or at least being able to respec your attribute points and skills are probably the biggest things the game would benefit from. The level design lead for the game, Miles Tost, replied saying that it is an incredibly complex feature to make, requiring the entire game to be rebalanced and tons of testing. There are many skill checks in the gameplay and dialogue, cyberware potentially breaking early games, such as being able to double jump where they shouldn't, or when you get your first grip at Vix but already having the gorilla fist, or also having to rework the part where you see the surgery take place. And in my opinion, it does make sense. Cyberpunk 2077 is extremely complex in the amount of freedom that they give you in this big detailed open world. There are probably endless amounts of bugs that can occur after they've just gotten the game not only fixed, but performing extremely well, and with this new update that just released, one of the most graphically advanced games out there. He also mentioned some questions that they asked themselves while thinking about this, like should you be able to keep your vehicles, and how are all of these scenarios handled? He said none of this is impossible, but you see how it is a lot more work than one might think on first glance. He said they're listening and investigating, however, there are no promises for New Game Plus. So yeah, I get the point, and I'm sure it requires some work. I don't think anybody was really thinking that it doesn't require work to implement New Game Plus, but at the same time, I don't think it's really that deep. I don't think most people are craving a next level experience from New Game Plus after already playing through the game. If someone jumps out of the map or attempts to get somewhere they're not supposed to, I mean, what's the issue? People just want a reason to keep playing without having to completely restart. He also said it's not like we're working on only one thing at a time. Resources are finite, even for big companies, and we have a lot of stuff cooking. And he added that tweet literally the same day that Edge Runners released, so I'm not sure if that was even including everything they had cooking with their entire list of upcoming games, but it's possible they have an even more full schedule since the time of that tweet, since the success with Edge Runners seemed to have enabled them to really push forward with all of these new projects. Other than that, the developers at CD Projekt Red haven't really given us any additional updates regarding New Game Plus, so sadly the best thing to assume is that it's not going to happen, since they didn't really seem too excited about it. But I mean, if you're really hopeful, you can hope for a surprise New Game Plus release to go with the DLC. The Witcher 3 had a New Game Plus update which was released as a free DLC, and that could totally be the case here. Maybe they will end up sneaking in a little New Game Plus update at some point, maybe along with the Phantom Liberty DLC or update 1.7, or just releasing it at some point later. But last we heard, New Game Plus was not sounding too appealing to the developers, but also not impossible, and even like they had thoroughly explored the possibility of New Game Plus coming to the game. But man, I really hope if CD Projekt Red doesn't sneak in a little New Game Plus along with the DLC or update 1.7, at least allow us to respec attribute points. The possibilities for builds in this game are absolutely endless, and it's one of the best things Cyberpunk has going for it, but having to grind through the game again and again just to try out new skills and stuff like that is kind of annoying. It's a very long game, so it's a lot to get through in order to do that. On top of that, if you're on your first playthrough of the game, or you're not paying close attention to where you're placing your points, you can completely block off some of the skills available that really change the game, and now your only choice is playing an entirely new playthrough. On PC, there are mods for that, and I mean, if you're on PC, you're living your best Cyberpunk life anyways, because some of the mods are crazy, but I just hate having to resort to that for this sort of thing, and a lot of the console players don't even have access to a PC that can run this game. Plus, I just love being able to sit on the couch and play games sometimes. It's just too tedious to play this on console most of the time though, because of the lack of a respec feature. Just that one feature would change a lot for the amount of time you can spend on here. I'm sure it takes some work to be able to do and implement it in a good way, but in my opinion, it would totally be worth it and be a massive improvement to the quality of life for Cyberpunk 2077. Speaking of mods though, I've seen a couple of comments on console mods. I highly doubt that will ever happen, but seeing as how Bethesda seems to have a good system for console mods, I don't want to sound greedy, but that would be an awesome idea, at least to look at for future games, because dude, some of the mods for Cyberpunk 2077 are just wild. The amount of time some of these guys put into these, like the Let There Be Flight mod for your flying cars, the Metro mod that allows you to use the subway, or even the smaller quality of life mods. I don't think it'll ever be a thing for Cyberpunk 2077 because it would take an incredible amount of work, but it's cool to think about. Granted, as phenomenal as some of these mods are, they do have some issues. Like before this update even dropped, I was spending hours fixing my game. I'm assuming one of the mods I downloaded is what killed it, because Cyberpunk would just flatline each time I try to start it. It's why you might notice some gameplay that I used in previous videos. So yeah, I can totally see why console mods don't exist yet, and why it doesn't happen for most console games. Anyways, I'll probably have a Phantom Liberty giveaway down in the comments that you can check out, and let me know in the comments what you think about this update, as well as the coming Phantom Liberty DLC and update 1.7. See ya.